You've probably noticed that Disney is remaking its classics. But why are they doing it? The answer itself is simple, but worth exploring. Easy money. That is, it's ostensibly easy to do, and it makes money. That was probably obvious to you. Of course it's easy. The work they're basing the live-action movies off of already exists, and only small tweaks to dialogue and story are necessary at all. The core remains the same. They have an excellent scaffolding to work off of. Many of these are beloved stories, and many people that saw the original animated films are still alive. And of course they make money. After all, it's Disney. The company prints money, though, to be fair, that's been less sure as of late. But up until the beginning of the pandemic, there were only a few live-action adaptations that flopped, mostly offset by a few that were shocking successes, especially The Jungle Book, The Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Alice in Wonderland, each of which came close to or grossed more than $1 billion. All in, Disney has spent about $2.75 billion on the budgets for the movies, and they've earned $10.25 billion at the box office, a decent multiple. Critically, it's pretty much down the middle. Half were well received, half weren't. It's no wonder that they have roughly a dozen projects in the works. So we've established a few things. 1, the idea stage, at least, is easy. You still have to go through the production after all, which is always a multi-year process. 2, most of the productions make money, some of them make obscene amounts. And 3, few of the productions have been critically notable. However, none of that answers the question, should Disney remake its classics? We'll tackle that from 2 points of view, the studios and the audiences. For the part of the studio, yes, they should. It's easy money and they would be dumb to turn it down. Walt Disney wouldn't. Like he said, quote, "We don't make movies to make money, we make money to make more movies," end quote. It's money that can fund future projects. It'd be irresponsible not to make what are, ostensibly, safe, uncontroversial movies. Perhaps the studio could be wiser about which movies they want to fund. After all, Cruella failed to reach the 2.5 multiplier, a gauge of whether a movie is a flop or not, so maybe a sequel wouldn't be advisable. But, wisdom aside, it's been a relatively safe investment thus far. Now, whether or not they should remake them from the audience's perspective is another question. Though, I'm not so quick to say no as others might be. The fact that the movies do well show that there's a market for them and that people do enjoy them, and I'm not quick to deny others their enjoyment. That said, there are issues regarding creativity that Disney and filmmakers need to contend with. The most salient topic for audiences seems to be the question of originality and faithfulness. The contention is that because these aren't original, there's no point in doing them, and that if you are going to do them, you should be faithful to the originals. I disagree with that notion. It's Disney. The company is original in the sense that it's totally unfaithful to the source. Disney got its start in movies by taking fairy tales, removing the blood and darkness, and converting them into family fare to critical and commercial acclaim. Their audience has always been and remains families. The source, that is, the stories of Snow White, Cinderella, Pinocchio, and others throughout history, are only important as a source of inspiration. Beyond that, Disney has never thought it important to be faithful to the original works. They take what they like and add their own flavor and texture. If modern directors do the same, I don't think that's a problem. What could be, and has been a problem, is modern directors getting caught up in trying to please the nostalgic audience. This is a creative problem, not a financial one. After all, except for the terminally online, most people don't care about the remakes. It's Disney. It's something that they know and they're familiar with. Even then, it'll invite comparison to the original animated feature. That's unavoidable. Because that's the case, the directors should be willing to take more risks. I'm sure they realize that they won't capture the magic of the animated films. The nostalgia factor is too strong, plus there's a fantastical aspect to 2D and 3D animation that works in a way that it just doesn't when it comes to the live action versions. You're never going to capture that magic. Instead of making a movie that's a wholesale adaptation of the original animated feature, they could zero in on a particular character and observe them from a different point of view. Movies like Maleficent and Cruella are interesting because they go a different route. They look at a particular character from the beloved animated features and try to paint them in a different light, or offer insight into how they became who they are. Movies like The Lion King are interesting from a technological point of view, which makes sense as Disney has always been great on the tech side, But part of what makes the original animation interesting is the fact that the animals can emote and exaggerate. It's not, for lack of a better word, fun when it's too real. If Disney wants to go another way, they should try to adapt other fairy tales or fables that they haven't adapted yet. Frozen is in part inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. The movie won critical and commercial acclaim and is in the vein of its old animated classics. There's no reason that Disney can't find similar successes with live-action adaptations of old tales. They shouldn't try to pigeonhole themselves to just working on the path they've already trodden with the 2D animated features. They can carve a new one. It is their specialty, after all. I have no inherent bias against them trying to reimagine the classics for modern-day audiences. They already did it when they adapted the fairy tales to animated features. There's no reason that they can't do it again, this time from animation to live action. They should remake them as long as they make money so they can fund other interesting projects and try to push the tech side of movie making like they did for The Lion King. But there's no reason for the movies to be so creatively sparse. They should use the original scaffolding created by the animated features and use it to zero in on and explore interesting characters, like they did with Cruella, or try to use the Disney name to create new franchises like they did with Frozen. They won't be able to avoid comparison with the originals, and it would be futile to try. In those cases, the directors should be allowed leeway to go in a direction that they see fitting. That could mean a darker return to the original stories or fully embracing how ridiculous you can be with live action. Creatively, I think the worst option would be to do what they're doing right now, trying to recreate the magic of the originals in live action. Instead, they should try to create new magic. So, should Disney remake its classics? Yes, they should, but they should have fun doing so and make them fun to watch. They shouldn't pigeonhole themselves to being a recreation of the originals, but with real people. Adaptations are the Disney way. That's been true since Disney adapted Snow White. But despite being unoriginal in its source, it became original through the creative process. It left its own mark. That's what the live-action adaptations should aspire to. They should leave their own mark, like the originals did. They won't do that by following the animated features completely and trying to recreate their magic. They will do so by going their own way. If that means breaking with the source, so be it. Disney did it once. Why can't they do it again? But what do you think? Are there any Disney live-action adaptations that you do like, or that you thought were better than the original?